Good morning and welcome to What Is It Wednesday. Thank you to all of you who guessed our Trivia Tuesday yesterday. Many of you got it right, and congratulations to those who did. We will be talking about genealogical charts today on What Is It Wednesday. And here in front of you is an item that we have on permanent display in the Barnes Museum. And this is one of the only handful of items that is not original to the family. This genealogical chart was done by our first curator, Milton Wooding, and his family. When the town accepted the gift of the museum in 1973, the Wooding family worked tirelessly to get the museum ready to be open for the public. And one of the very first things they had to do was figure out who these cast of characters were and how they related to one another. So on the bottom here, you can see that this chart was completed by C.B. Wooding in February of 1974. So this compilation took just about a year to do, and you can see that we've got some sticky notes on here. As we continue to research the family and we get more updated or complete information, we do start to add it to the chart, and that is something that we need to eventually add to the actual chart in the frame. So let's take a closer look at this chart. It does start with Bradley and Leela. And for Leela, right here, Leela H. Upson, Leela Holcomb Upson. And it goes all the way down through her parents and grandparents and great-grandparents and goes all the way through to some of the very first ancestors that she had that came over to the United States in 1644. Now, in Bradley's side of the family, we've got Bradley Barnes right here, and we come on out, we have his parents, of course, Norman and Alice. This is the side of the family that we talk most about because Bradley's grandparents, Eamon and Sylvia, pictured right here on the chart. Eamon is the one who built this homestead. So we do discuss this a lot, and there's the Ichabod family and the Dan Bradleys that we discussed when we went out to Bradley Mountain Farm. But what's interesting, we like to confuse people here at the Barnes Museum sometimes. Well, we don't like to do it, but it sort of happens because we have Barneses, we've got Bradleys, and we have Bradley Barnes himself. And the reason why it gets a little confusing is because if we take a close look at this chart right here, we see Norman Barnes is, of course, a Barnes, Bradley's father. But Bradley's grandmother, we have Eamon Bradley, his grandfather, but Sylvia, his grandmother, her maiden name was Barnes. And that is, if we take this line out and we jump over Ichabod Bradley and come on up to Truman Barnes and Lowly Barrett, and then continue on up to Jonathan Barnes. Jonathan is not only a direct descendant of Sylvia, but also of Norman Barnes, Bradley Barnes's father. So we've got a distant relation from Sylvia and Norman. Now I'd like to talk a little bit about how you can do your own genealogical chart today, but first I want to show you another chart that we have at the Barnes Museum. And in order to do that, I am going to walk down this hallway and I'm going to show you the 15-foot, 15 whole feet ancestral chart that we have. This chart was done for us many years ago. Of course, this is not an original. We would not have it on the floor if it was. But this 15-foot chart absolutely does go through all the descendants of the Barnes family. So we go all the way down here for Bradley Barnes, of course, married to Leela right there. We see Norman and Alice above that with Joel and Anna. And then Joel and Anna continue on up to that Truman Barnes. We just talked about Truman. And off of Truman, of course, we see Sylvia and Eamon there. And we continue on with those green lines. We highlight it to make it easier for us as we're doing research for folks who email or call us here at the Barnes Museum. We have the descendants of Stephen Barnes. Genealogical charts are a super fun, easy project. This looks so daunting, right? If you've never done your own genealogical history before, it can seem overwhelming, but it doesn't have to be. This chart is, yes, very extensive. It is 15 feet long. It has a lot of information that goes all the way back to the 1700s, but you can do your own ancestral chart. And today, I'd like to show you how. So we're gonna come right here. and take a little seat in the back hallway. And if you've done this before, this is going to look very familiar to you, but if you never have, this is a perfect way to start your own history, the history of your family in your own chart. How do you want to start it? Where do you start? Your family goes back generations upon generations. Who do you start with? Well, it sounds a little egotistical, but you start with you. You know you best. So you start with you. Put yourself right on a page, and you can put yourself in a little square just like that. And from you, you know who your parents are. You can go right up, and you know that you have parents. So do you have a mom and a dad? Do you have two dads? Do you have two moms? Did one of them pass away? Are they still with us? All of that information can be put here. When two people are married, what you do is you put an equal sign, and then you put this line directly up to that, and that shows that that is a child. Now, if you have any siblings like I do, you can come on over here and you can put your sibling in this line right here. Now, the reason you kind of put things in boxes and you put things in lines is because then it's easy to see how many generations forward and backward you go, and you can count them very easily, but then you can also see which generation you're talking about. You and your sibling are part of the same generation. Your sibling's children and your children right here, I know I'm doing circles instead of squares, but you get the idea, are part of this generation and this lineage. So you know that this is your generation, this is your parents' generation, this is your grandparents' generation, your great-grandparents' generation, and so on and so forth all the way back. If you're doing your own historical research, you might find that there is a line through a crossed out line. Could be an X, it could be just a line like that. That could mean that a person was divorced. It could mean that a person passed away. And sometimes it's just kind of like a regular puzzle. It's just following the arrows, following the lines of all history to see where your family will take you. By starting with you, you can go back as far as you can remember, and then maybe you can talk to your family members and they can help you fill in some of the gaps. When you're looking at the historic record, we talked about this when we discussed cemeteries several weeks ago for What Is It Wednesday. Some of your information could be incomplete, it could be incorrect. That's okay. Get the information that you find down first and then dig a little deeper. Go into those cemeteries, go into different birth certificates, death certificates, see if the spelling has changed. Many people who immigrated over to the United States changed the spelling of their name. And that spelling can even change through time. So just because your name is spelled a certain way today doesn't mean it's like that in the past either. So dive into your own history, see your own ancestral charts. If for those of you, again, who have worked on programs like Ancestry.com, all the world is at your fingertips with technology today. But in case you do not have the ability to do that, you can start your own chart today simply by looking back and forwards from you. We hope you have fun exploring genealogy in your own family, and you never know who you may be related to. Happy hunting, and see you next week.